That's right, 2 months later, and I've joked about it like 5 times, but it's finally here. Welcome to the second episode of the Essex Files.
Triplebeppo Super Show.
I got copyright claimed for my edited version of the intro, by the way. Fuck! From 2003 to 2004, there was a rift. A gaping void that would go unnoticed by the world until nearly 15 years later. This rift, of course, was within the discography of the artist of 54 names, Emma Essex. After her brief stint as Four Eyes from 2001 to 2002, she shed that alias and moved on to her most popular and continuous one, Renard. Or so people thought. Us true connoisseurs of fine art had to dig deeper. There we found a relic, an ancient record, a 15-year-old deviantart page by the artists themselves. Backed by mentions in the MGD series, and mentioned in 2008 and an old file compilation in 2012, this page contained the scrawlings of a high school underclassman, an aspiring musician, simply known as Neko, who lasted for 1 year and 1 year only, the year of 2005. In terms of character design, I am simply unsure as to the sequence of events. It seems that the initial design was something akin to this, as it was the one featured on the album. However, other renditions depict him as a three-tailed koi fish in black and yellow rave clothes. From what I can tell, the koi design came after the ambiguous one, potentially even after the retiring of the Neko alias itself. However, on this last detail, I am unsure. Examining the art only deepens the mystery. For one, why is the character named the Japanese word for cat while being a fish? Perhaps irony. Yeah, it might be that. But one mystery is still unsolvable. Does this character have legs? He definitely has pants, but there are no feet protruding from them. They seem to be holding nothing. It could be that the pants are purely aesthetic, but they also hold shape as though there are legs in them. If I ever get an interview, I have to ask this question. But I digress. Neko stands as Essex's second known alias, and the first with a full-fledged album, known as The Precursor, released in 2005. This album predated Essex's formal internet fame, and was distributed on CDs, physically. For a long time, this album was known of, but the audio itself was seemingly lost to time. Songs would spring up every now and then on YouTube and such, but normally in lower qualities. Truly, the precursor seemed to be all but out of our reach. Well, until about 2 weeks ago, on December 2nd of 2020, that is. Emma Essex herself, on the official Halley Labs YouTube channel, was able to find a physical copy of the CD and re-release it on the channel. With this re-release came a note. Quote, "This is the earliest existing full album of mine, predating even the Renard alias, created in the midst of peak weebery. There was a lot of disc rot going on with the last remaining copy of this. Many thanks to an old friend for holding on to it and delivering it as soon as possible. He's featured on this record, playing the flute on King of Sorrow. And you can hear read errors at the tail end of the last track in particular. It's crazy to think that this was 15 years, nearly half of my life ago. I would have been 15 or 16 when I produced most of these. Of note, this is the first official appearance of Quiet Man, which was already in its second revision. Of course, the Neko name would somehow live on as a fish with a lot of tails, but only for one hard trance track for the most part. I guess their natural evolution was mayhem? Fricked up. So this is an album that goes for an hour and 5 minutes, and sounds most of the way through like upbeat video game themes, carried by some decently catchy synth and chiptune melodies. I suppose you could call a lot of the songs chiptune? I don't know, the wiki says hard dance. There are definitely a few hard dance type songs in here, but I'd say that it has certain songs that are of different varieties. However, I wouldn't classify all of them into one genre or another. Interspersed throughout the project are songs like Magic Rock, which have an auto-tune/synthesized robotic lyricism over the aforementioned tunes. In some of these songs, the lyricism itself is used only to further the beat, and a chiptune melody is what takes center stage, as in the instance of the song Who the is Richard D. James. I like that about this project. Even though it's not necessarily my style through most of it, it's overall pretty well made, and has certain elements that make me go but I digress. My favorites off of this album are Hungarian Dance No. 5, which is simply a good hard banger dance tune. I'd say that this is the truest to the hard dance label. King of Sorrow is another good song. It reminds me of the final fight in a classic-style RPG game, where you're fighting the friend you fought alongside for the entirety of the game, and the flute section, done by he who provided this CD to Essex, stands as a sort of flashback sequence, or a reprise of a theme played during the good times of the game. In all honesty, for being titled King of Sorrow though, the song isn't really as sad as you'd imagine. Now this song isn't one of my favorites necessarily, but it's quite unique. Sleeping sounds like the background music to a 1980s charity ad for some reason. It's piano and a string section and an acoustic guitar. And it feels really out of place compared to the electronic feeling of the rest of the album. Still, in Essex fashion, it's well made despite the strange concept. Overall, I feel as though this album is nice, and a vast improvement over the works of Four Eyes. But there was something about a lot of the tracks that didn't really get me engaged with the work as a whole. With the exception of a few songs like Magic Rock, Hungarian Dance No. 5, King of Sorrow, and Sleeping, I feel as though the majority of the hour-long album was almost homogeneous in a way. The songs kind of blended together and faded into the background. It feels like this album, in order to be fully enjoyed, should have been paired with a visual or interactive element, such as a video game. Well, I guess partially correct, because the work of this Alias was featured in all 3 Mungyo dance games, and Essex was working on the games at the time of this release. But what I mean is that I could imagine a top-down style RPG game with all of these as a soundtrack. You know the vibes. But overall, I'd give this album a 6, honestly. Essex can do much better and has done much better throughout the course of her career. But it's nice to see where she came from.
So many dudes be in the comments like, oh, I'm a simp, or can I simp? Why? Make better decisions.
Following this release, however, came the fall of the Neko Alias. In September of the same year, Essex released a post on the deviantart that would alter the course of history for years to come, at least within the scope of this series. She stated, "My nick is Renard now, because I said so. It's more pronounceable musically than Sonatus Veer, and not as cookie-cutter as Neko. Expect a decent website with my music and stuff soon enough." And I'll close this episode of the Essex Files out with another quote from the jackal of all trades herself, and I'll catch you next time. I hope you find this look into the past enlightening or entertaining, and more than anything, I hope it inspires you to keep developing your craft, whatever that may be. As always, remember to
subscribe to make me feel better about my regrets.
Also, follow me on Twitch and stuff. I'm trying to do more live streams.